Hello, dear students. How are you? And definitely you'll answer, I'm good. But this is wrong English. You must always say, I'm fine, thank you. How are you? Because you are good or bad, that is not what you are going to decide. Somebody else will decide. That is, the receiver will decide. Yesterday, we were talking about communicative English, and the crux of the whole session is communication. Welcome back. I'm Dr. Archana Durgesh from the Department of Humanities, BBT University. And I'm going to share my views again in continuation on communicative English. That is the part of your syllabi. Okay. Now, yesterday we discussed about the verbal and the non-verbal communication, business and social communication, and we discussed about general and technical communication. One thing I wanted to add in yesterday's session, that is, like, suppose if you are communicating with somebody, what happens is that non-verbal communication is maximum. To an extent, you can say that minimum it's 58%. It can go up to 70, 80, 90, even 100 in case of specially able. Why? Because in certain conditions, we don't communicate with words at all. What we communicate is with non-verbal communication. Like suppose if you invite me to a party and if I come very late, then this shows my casual attitude. This shows how casual I take you. If I'm responding to your message or to your call on the prompt, it shows how aggressive I am, or rather how professional I am. But if I'm answering it late, or I'm just seeing the message and still not responding, this shows my unprofessional attitude, rather my lethargic attitude, my complacent attitude. So communication always talks about the you factor. You-ness in communication is very important. Another thing which is mostly asked in examinations or anywhere you wish to write, you are given a write up like, no man is an island. Man is born to communicate. Nobody can live without communication. No man is an island, no man is self sufficient. They need society to communicate. That is why you are taught language so that you can communicate yourself. Now you say that people who are born deaf and dumb, how do they communicate? They are taught sign language. And if you talk about blind, then they know how to speak. But then if it comes to writing or reading, they use braille. So communication is really very important. Dale Carnegie has said, man's mind starts working the moment he is born and doesn't stop unless and until he stand up in public and speak. So basically, our mind starts working. The moment we are born, we start crying. What does the crying denote? It shows that I don't like the environment that I have been brought out into. There is a lot of warmth inside. The child is secured, but when he is pulled out into the environment, he feels a bit of chill cold, whether even it's in July or June. The child feels a lot cold because the environment, the atmosphere inside, the temperature inside the body was entirely different. So the child communicates. The child expresses his or her feelings that this is not what I like. I was in the comfort and you have pulled me out of it. So the child even knows by crying. It is always said that tears are women and child's weapon. Yes, they are the weapon of women and child because जब कुछ समझ में नहीं आता तो females or child they start crying because they feel so helpless. By nature, women and child are soft. So when it comes to say when they feel helpless, they start crying. When the child feels helpless, he's hungry, he starts crying. If he's in some kind of pain or a discomfort or he needs the warmth of his mother's hold, he starts crying. That is what communication is all. You need to communicate. And you have to communicate according to the receiver because the receiver perspective is more important. You will never talk to your maid in English and say, listen, you need to broom this section. You need to clean. This chandelier needs a bit of dusting, cleaning, and such. You won't talk like that because The language is really very important because the communication has to be done in accepted coding sequence. So now I'm going to start my lecture on personal communication, and I'm about to share my notes with you people. But please remember, they are edited versions, they are designed for your benefit, for your use. You can use them as primary source, secondary source. You can edit, add, but please see to it that subtract anything when you find it really unnecessary or you are unable to understand that portion or learn that portion, because it has been these notes have been designed according to the syllabus. So please keep that in mind. I'll start sharing. Personal communication may be private, that is through letters, memos, emails, personal interviews, or telephone conversations. Communication, personal communication can be defined as the process of generating meaning by sending and receiving verbal and non-verbal symbols, signs that are influenced by multiple contexts. Yesterday, I told you that the communication is always done in context. Context is really very important. You are even supposed to write a question sometimes, signifying the importance of context. Now, before we move on, I would like to explain the importance of context. I'm going to share an anecdote with you, because communication is as important that you have to understand and you will remember this way. So I'm going to share an anecdote. Once Akbar and Birbal were sitting in the court. There were other courtiers sitting in the court. It happened that Birbal asked for a leave a couple of days. Emperor Akbar allowed him. And he said that if you are supposed to attend this business family function, please go ahead, come back within the stipulated period of time of your leave. Birbal, seeking his permission and giving them thanks, went away. After a couple of days, Birbal joined back. And when he joined back, Akbar asked him out of curiosity, how was the function? He said it was a grand party. So the general question which we generally ask our relatives, our friends, our family members, kya kya tha? What did you have to eat? So he started telling, I had this, that. He named various dishes. Suddenly, there was an outroar in the court, and somebody came out calling out for justice from Emperor Akbar. Emperor Akbar stopped Birbal there and then and started dealing with the woman. After dealing, the court was over, and suddenly the next day, Birbal and Akbar were sitting in the court. There were many people around there. The other courtiers were even there. He said, and Birbal, and what? Or kya? Birbal suddenly said, nothing, just curry. Curry is a dish made out of curd, and it's a very popular dish in the north. And he said, nothing, just curry. And the conversation ended there and then. The Emperor Akbar, before leaving the court, was so happy that he came to Birbal, he hugged him and gave him a necklace of pearl necklace. Now everybody was so envied that the next day, when Akbar came back to the court, the whole court was smelling of curry. Now, curry is a bit, say, tangy in taste. So the whole court was smelling very bad. So Akbar said, what is this? What is this rubbish all about? So they said, when he just said curry, you gave him a pearl necklace. What about us? We bought it. Our wives make excellent curry. You must taste it. Akbar was really hysterical. And after that, he was even angry. And he felt how foolish his people are. And he said, you must know the context I was communicating. Only Birbal knew what he was talking about, because the context is really important. I'll move on. Yesterday, we were even discussing grapevine. I'll tell you in detail some other time. That is a question I'll leave for today's section in the end. We'll continue from here. The definition is built on other definitions of communication, even that are rehearsed and refined over many years. Since the systematic study of communication began in the colleges and universities a little over 100 years ago, 26 public published definitions of communication are there. But if you go to Google and you search the definition of Google communication, you'll find more than one definitions of communication. Then the forms of communication may vary in terms of participants, the channels used, and the context. Participants are like who's there, who are the senders, or who's the sender or the receivers. The channels, that is the medium you're using. Maybe it may be WhatsApp, it may be email, it may be telephonic conversation, it may be video conferencing, it may be a letter, it may be a report. The five main forms of communication, which are explored in much detail, are interpersonal, intrapersonal, group, public, and mass. Like if you talk about intrapersonal communication, that is the first type of communication that is actually done in you. Like suppose if you are meditating, if you are sitting in puja, if you are offering namaz, that is intrapersonal communication. When you talk to your own self, it may be a self-analysis. You're talking to the Almighty because we are all part of Almighty. That is why it is known as intrapersonal communication. Even if we are doing some kind of havan or home, that comes into the ambit of intrapersonal. Interpersonal communication is between two people. Like between, say, if I'm talking to you in the class, that is interpersonal communication. But if I'm talking to the class itself, that is group communication because I am communicating with the group. Public communication is like when I'm talking to public at large. Like Modi ji started, the most respected Prime Minister, Modi ji, he starts his speech, Mere Mitro. So that is a public address. That's a public communication. Mass form or mass communication is when you have newspapers, news channels, magazines. These are mass features of mass. Like there are three things that are considered the pillars of mass. One is the editor or the gatekeeper who decides how much information will move out of the organization or the channel or the newspaper. Then the second is impersonalization. The person who is always reporting, you will find the person very impersonal. He doesn't get involved in reporting or between reporting. You don't. You'll never find them very emotive. You'll never find them very angry, or they won't get carried away. Okay? So this is the second. And then the last and the third thing is that it has a wide reach. Like if you are listening to BBC, then you can listen to BBC even in London, even in Lucknow, even in the remotest areas where the network can catch. Or you can say if you read Hindu, the Hindu newspaper, the Hindu newspaper can be delivered in Kashmir, Kanyakumari, Gujarat, Mumbai, Kolkata, Chennai, Puducherry, anywhere, because it has wide reach. So this is the this is the basic thing. This is the most important aspect of this thing. It can reach out to as many people. Now, intrapersonal communication we are going to discuss at length here. For example, communicating with our own self. That, for example, if I take the example of eating, it happens that there are two types. Under stress, few people eat a lot, and under stress, few people lose their appetite. So the people who eat too much in stress, or rather out of hunger they eat too much, or out of liking they eat too much, they definitely question themselves: why do I eat so much? Why do I have to hog like it? Why do I end up eating? I need to cut down a lot of weight, and still I end up eating sweets and food rich in carbohydrates and starch and sugar like mango, banana, shakes. Why do shakes always attract me? Burgers, pizzas. We eat them and then we question ourselves. Why do I consume all this? Couldn't I contain myself? That is a kind of interesting communication because you are talking to your own self. The communication is going somewhere inside your head. That communication that goes inside your head, you visualize, but you don't vocalize. You don't vocally say it. You just maintain that in your own self. Set, for example, a self-talk to calm yourself in stressful situation. A shy person may remind himself or herself with a smile during social event. Like Some people are so shy, they're so introvert that they don't communicate at all. In fact, they keep talking to themselves and they just give a slight smile and they shy away. They're so mild, they don't want to get into any kind of discussion. That is intrapersonal communication. A person is very introvert and shy. Then what happens is, like, if we talk about uh, internalized shyness as a part of self-concept, because other people associate communication with shyness, may be labeled as shy. In other forms of communication, competent interpersonal communication helps facilitate social interaction. Like, if you will keep it to yourself, you will get in some kind or the other of mental illness. If you don't communicate with, you need to communicate, you have to break that shell. Yesterday I was talking about the bubble that you carry everywhere because it's a ever present bubble. It is there in you, you carry it like a bubble. That bubble is around you. If you don't call out to people, if you don't reach out to people, if you don't communicate with them, then some or the other kind of stress or mental illness happens. Sometimes we communicate for fun of it. Like, for example, said there is something funny. There a number of times it has happened in the class. The other child is sitting in the class and suddenly he starts smiling and it ends up in a huge grin. And I'm surprised that he is not talking to anybody. There is no joke being cracked in the class. Why is he giving such a funny look? But as a person of communication and an expert in body language, I can understand that this child is going through some kind of intrapersonal communication. The child is talking in his own mind. And because he has recalled something very funny, so he started suddenly smiling and grinning. He is not communicating with anybody else, but then he's not paying attention in the class. But in certain cases, in 90, 95, even 99% cases, the student can be asked to stand up in the class and share the joke. The teacher can really get rude and say, share the joke. Why are you laughing alone? But then the person must understand. The person must be empathetic and realize that there is something in the mind of the child. The child is thinking something else. Maybe he's not feeling comfortable right now in the situation. But sitting in a class for a long period of time is not very comfortable. But you have to sit because study is really very important. Sometimes unplanned communication can even go unnoticed. However, you can engage in more and more of intentional interpersonal communication, deliberate communication like self-reflection, self-analysis to keep a mindful check on your behavior. Like, for example, if I get angry too early, I must communicate with myself because nobody can explain me, nobody can, uh, convince me to behave in a better fashion other than me. Only I can counsel myself. I'm not saying that others can counsel me. I can listen to others. But then if my soul will talk to me, my heart will explain it to my mind that you have to behave rationally, that you have to talk to people very nicely, then of course that interpersonal communication will create a very good impact on you. Like when I was a little girl, my mom used to say, before sleeping, if you're not feeling unless and until you're feeling very sleepy, just do some essay. Essay means self-analysis. When you rationally analyze yourself and you come to know that how you spend your day, that is interpersonal. You talk to yourself. Spend some time. There is a very funny joke going around on WhatsApp right now these days that if you need expert advice, if I need expert advice, I seek my advice because I'm an expert. It's funny. It may sound very funny, but you know what? Interpersonal communication is a very important communication. It's really very significant. You should spend time with your own self because if you spend time with your own self, your mind can be diverted and you can counsel yourself in a better way. Like the least amount of formal study is required for all this. It's rare to find courses devoted to this topic. If you feel that there are other courses running for interpersonal communication, there is nothing like that. It's just not created with intention with another person. You have to perceive it on your own level. The communicator anticipates consumption of these messages, that is very important. Okay. Now that I have explained intrapersonal communication, I'll move to interpersonal communication. Just remember that intrapersonal communication is done with the person in his own self. You're not supposed to communicate with any other person because it's visualization, but not vocalization. You're not vocal in intrapersonal communication. You just visualize it. Interpersonal communication is communication between people whose lives mutually influence one another. Maybe, may not, in such cases. But interpersonal communication definitely builds and maintains or ends our relationship. We have to spend more time engaged in interpersonal communication rather than any other part of the communication. Like people, they end up their life. They commit suicide. They because they do not talk to each other. Talking breaks a lot of ice. There is a concept of ice breaking. Like if you go in a corporate world, what they do is that before conducting this GDs or PIs, they take you into ice breaking sessions so that you're not nervous, you're your natural self, and you don't have any hesitations. You're not bound up inside. You're not under any kind of stress or tension, but you don't perform your best. So what it means that there is a lot of ice breaking. There is a lot of interpersonal communication that's and interpersonal communication occurs in various contexts. It is addressed in subfields of study within communication, intercultural communication, organizational communication, health communication, computer media communication. After all, interpersonal communication and interpersonal relations exist in every context. For example, if I go to a doctor, I have to be very clear about my ailments because if I don't discuss my ailments with the doctor, then how will I be able to get the proper treatment? So, like if suppose I go to a legal advisor, then how can I get a good legal advice unless and until I tell the lawyer or advocate my problem at length? So, interpersonal communication can be planned or unplanned. But since it is interactive, it is usually more structured and influenced by social expectations than interpersonal communication. Interpersonal communication is actually more goal oriented. It fulfills the instrumental and the relational needs. Like if you talk about relationship with someone, committed relation with someone, interpersonal needs the relational needs by communicating the uniqueness of specific relationship. Like for example, if I take mother and son bond, then interpersonal communication is really very important. If I expect my son to share his feelings with me, then even I should share my feelings with him. Unless and until I share my feelings, my problems, a child will always feel that my mom is a woman. My mom is a perfect person. She doesn't have any problems. She's out of the world. She's so perfect. Excuse me, I am no epitome of perfection. The other day, I faced a lot of problem in interpersonal communication with my son. Sowed some seeds of watermelon. He asked me that will this watermelon plant grow out or not? Now, I don't have to be perfect. There is no problem in saying that I don't know. But in that case, he won't ask me more questions because he feels that my mom doesn't know the answers. If I say yes, it will, and if it doesn't, then failure will hurt him. So what I did, I said, let's wait and watch. Because when I was a young girl or a little girl, I never saw this system of money. So for the first time, I'm doing it with you. So let's wait and watch. Maybe we can Google and find out how to grow a watermelon tree better or a climber better. So what we did, we Googled. And after 15 or 20 days, it shot. And today we have a small plant of water. The point is that if you indulge yourself in interpersonal communication, you can reach a better conclusion. You have to talk out to people. You cannot stay mum. You cannot keep quiet and do interpersonal communication because it won't take you anywhere. Man is a social animal. Aristotle said man is a social animal. You need to communicate. If you won't communicate, you'll somewhere wither inside because everybody needs to spell out their emotions and their feelings. Most of the time, it's not very popular in India, but in West, it is very popular that there are counselors. There are student counselors, there are professional counselors, there are marriage counselors. And a study says that most of the time the couples end up in getting divorces due to lack of interpersonal communication. Why do you need a counselor to share your feelings with? Why do you need a third person? You can tell your problem to your parents. You can discuss it with your friends. Aren't your parents your best friend? They have a lot of knowledge. They have a lot of experience. Couples, bosses, employees, and family members all have to engage in complex interpersonal communication, and it doesn't always go well. In order to be a competent interpersonal communicator, you need conflict management skills and listening skills, among others, to maintain positive relationships. Listening is a very important thing. If somebody asks me what is more important in communication, then it is listening. Undoubtedly, because unless and until you listen to the person carefully with open mind, you won't be able to reach a conclusion. Because just listening. Now, before I explore more on listening, I must tell you that there is a difference between hearing and listening. Hearing is physical. Like if you can hear, that means that you're physically able to hear. You're not deaf. But listening is something which requires active efforts. Like for example, if I'm sitting in the class, in fact, sorry, I'm lecturing in the class and the fan is going on, and there's some kind of a trouble. The fan is making noise, and you can hear it. Then that is hearing, because by virtue of the quality of hearing, you can hear it. But if you are making an active effort, you're feeling very hungry, rather and it's very hot, and you're sitting in a very uncomfortable position because in a bench there are three students sitting together because you're three are best friends and you want to sit together, but it's really too hot. You all three are sweating, you are really very hungry, but I'm experiencing something very important which you really like to follow. Then that is listening because it is involving active listening. Understood? Okay. Now I'll move on to group communication. Good communication is among three or more people interacting to achieve a shared goal. You have likely worked in groups in high school or college, and if you're like students, you didn't enjoy it. Even though it can be frustrating, group work in an academic setting provides useful experience and preparation for group works in professional settings. Organizations have been moving toward more team-based work models, whether we like it or not. Groups are integral part of people's life. If the study of group communication is valuable in many contexts. Like if whether you like it or not, you must you haven't I think you haven't forgotten that I don't know how they do it in school right now, but when I was in high school and intermediate, in science labs and in during practicals, we were made to stand in groups of five. Like I remember my chemistry practical, we were at least four or five girls in our group. And the groups were divided equally, and we used to conduct the practical. Though sometimes the girls who were in the group, because they were always role number ones, they were sparks and indifferences, arguments, or some heated exchanges. But then we ended up completing the practically stipulated time, taking off the final results. Because howsoever different you may be to each other, but communication should go on. It should not. It should never stop. And moreover, you have to reach the desired goal. It has to be completed. Whether you like each other or not, you don't have to spend your life together with each other. But still, a group is like working in a team. And today, teamwork is the most important aspect of an organization. Group communication is more intentional and formal than interpersonal communication. Because interpersonal communication, they are voluntary. Individuals are in a group, assigned their position within a group. Because it is more formal. It is like a setup. I say that you seven boys and girls are supposed to make this model, or and you are assigned this work. So one is the leader, and like suppose if I give you some research to do, then two people will do the research work, two people will work on the computer, three people will do the say field work. So I have divided the task between people. Now the two working on the computer have to work together, two doing the research will have to do the work together, and three doing the field work will have to do the work together. And at the end, these seven people have to sit together to give the final shape to the project or the model. So you have to understand the importance of group communication. It's not formal. And it is not one-to-one interaction. It is group. Minimum three, maybe maximum 10 or more. Because group communication involves a purpose, a goal, and it affects every participant in the group. For example, I may ask a friend to help or move my place from one to another. It's goal oriented, but it definitely focuses on one assigned task. But then it's between me and my friends. But for example, if I ask my 5 colleagues to do that, so that is also good. They coming to my place will be different. Their mode of travel will be different. How they react to a certain situation. Having more communicators usually leads to more complicated interactions. Sometimes even challenges in good communication because they are related to task-oriented interactions, such as deciding who will complete each part of a larger project. How many challenges stem out of it, and interpersonal conflicts or misunderstandings that crop up between group members. Since group members also communicate and relate to each other interpersonally, they may have pre-existing relationships or develop them during the course of the group interaction. Elements of interpersonal communication occur within the group communication group. For example, if I have made a group of these seven students, then it may be that the person working in the computer, the two people working on the computer, say X, Y. Now X may know P who's working in the field work. So they may share an interpersonal relationship. Now, if I say A and B are doing the research work, they might have been best friends. So it's a very difficult to define. So there has been interpersonal relationship even. Now, we move on to modes of communication. The modes or the medium or the channel through which a person intends to express, or we can say that is a mode of communication. Now, before we move on further, discussing on the modes of communication, as I told you at the end of the session, I'll be talking about grapevine. Now, grapevine is just like gossip, and it burgeons. Burgeons means spreads in an organization or anywhere you work. What happens is that gossip even has a proper pattern. There are four patterns in a gossip pattern. It's a single-stranded pattern. Single-stranded pattern is when it is done in linear form. Like for example, a line is drawn, a straight line is drawn, and I on every 1 centimeter I mark A, B, C, D, E. A tells B, B tells C, C tells D, D tells E. So this is a linear pattern where one information follows from one person to another, then to another, and so on. A is the liaison and E is the dirender. Liaison means the person who begins the gossip, and dirender is the person where the gossip ends. Now, the wheel pattern is when one person tells that piece of gossip to 5 people at the same time because A is the liaison and B, C, D, E, F at the same time have been given the information by A. Getting my point? It just looks like a cycle wheel. So what happens is the spokes are the direnders and A in the center, that is where the spokes meet, is the liaison. That is why it's known as a wheel path. Now there is cluster pattern. You must have seen grapes growing in a cluster. A cluster is where grapes always grow in clusters. So cluster is a group communication. It is even known as group gossip. So in this gossip, what happens is, like suppose I am a BSc student and I am living in the hostel, and my roommate is a BTech student from CS, and she is from Gorakhpur. And somebody else from Gorakhpur from her own school has joined BCA, which is who is living in the next hostel. And her roommate is from Qatar, and she is in BTech CS University. Then my cousin, she is doing her BBA, and she has one best friend who is from Gorakhpur. What happens is that when we meet, like suppose if I come go out of my room after 5 or around 6 for an evening walk, I take my roommate along, and then I call my friend from the neighboring hostel. She comes along with her roommate. She says, even I'll accompany you because we are from the same. Her roommate is from the same city as I am, and then my cousin even walks in with her roommate. Initially, it's a very informal kind of a relationship, and we all become friends. After 2 or 3 months of sitting together with each other, we all become friends. So, what is this? This is a cluster. Now, if I need to share some gossip about somebody, then it is where I will share it. And in the evening meetings, on a cup of tea. So, if I'm sitting with my friends, say on Nescafe, after college timings around 6:30, sitting near the Nescafe and I'm discussing things. Suddenly, somebody passes and I say, "Do you know this? That is cluster communication. That is cluster gossip. Because you gossip among your own six friends. You don't discuss it in the class. You don't discuss it anywhere else. You don't discuss it in the hostel. What you do is when you sit, six people sit together, you discuss it. Then last is probability. What happens? Probability network is that you don't know who is the liaison and who is the dead member. Like you heard something and then you told your roommate and she said, "Oh, really? I know this. Who told you?" Somebody from the neighboring hostel told me. Really? Who told her? Yeah, I think something, a day scholar told her. But then when you keep on digging, you come to know that it is somebody from the other college who has told. So you don't know whether you have started this gossip, somebody else has already shared this gossip. So you never know that who is the license, who is the tenant. That is the probability structure. Because this term was used in your syllabi, that is the great point. That is, I have explained you in just 2 minutes. If you need to know it in detail, I can definitely share notes on this, and we can come back to discussing it in a different session. This is where I come to an end of my session 3. I hope I have given you something to learn about. You have learned something new. Thank you so much for attending this session. I'll be back soon with my fourth session and I'll be beginning with modes of communication. Thank you so much. Take care. Stay fit. Goodbye.